We have divided reading as practice to certain stages of life. It's basically an assumption. Childhood for imagination, teenage years for identity, adulthood for productivity or serious reading, later life for reflection. It sounds neat when arranged like that. It is also not how it actually works. Because people do not stop having internal lives at any age. They just change the way they access them. Bibliotherapy, if it is useful at all as a concept, is useful precisely because it refuses that segmentation. It does not ask what age you are in order to begin. It asks what is happening internally right now and what kind of language might meet that. There are children who use stories to organize fear before they can explain fear. Not in abstract terms, in very concrete ways. Monsters, loss, separation, the strange unpredictability of adults. Stories become a way of structuring experience that are otherwise too large to hold directly. Not by simplifying them, but by giving them shape. Then there are teenagers where reading often functions less as imagination and more as recognition. The sense of being inside something internally intense without having language for it yet. Books become a kind of parallel space where emotional complexity is already documented, even if the external world is not yet responding to it in that way. That is often where people first encounter the feeling of, this book understands me, even though what is actually happening is more specific. The book is not understanding, it is structuring something that already exists internally but has not yet been given external coherence. Then adulthood arrives, and reading often shifts again. Not always towards depth or sophistication, despite how it is sometimes framed, but towards naming. Naming what is being carried, naming what has accumulated, naming what has become difficult to separate from background noise. This is often where bibliotherapy becomes more explicitly practical, even if it is still not being called that. People are not only reading for insight, they are reading to locate themselves inside a larger structure of meaning that does not require constant explanation. And then there is later life, which is often discussed in extremely limited ways when it comes to reading, either as leisure or nostalgia or cognitive maintenance, all of which are incomplete. Because reading in later life is often about continuity, staying inside an interior world that has been built over decades and is still expanding even when external expansion slows down. Books do not become less relevant at that stage, they often become more concentrated, less about exploration, more about depth of attention. What is consistent across all of these stages is not the content of what is being read, it is the function. Reading as a way of holding internal experience in a structured form that does not collapse under its own weight. This function does not depend on age, it depends on need, and need changes constantly. Which is why any attempt to assign reading to a specific stage of life tends to fall apart in practice. People do not read according to schedules. They read according to internal conditions. There are adults rereading children's books because they are the only texts that feel emotionally manageable at a given moment. There are teenagers reading philosophy because something in their internal life is already asking those questions. There are older readers discovering contemporary fiction for the first time and finding it more relevant than anything they encountered earlier in life. None of this is exceptional. It is just how reading works when it is not being turned into performance. Bibliotherapy at its most basic level is simply the recognition that literature adopts to internal states rather than external categories. And that internal states do not follow age boundaries very cleanly. They follow patterns, some stable, some temporary, some returning. There is also something slightly underrated that happens when reading is removed from age-based expectation. It becomes less about arriving at a certain kind of reader identity and more about maintaining a relationship with language across time. Not improving it, not optimizing it, just continuing it. There is a difference. One implies progression, the other implies continuity. And continuity is often closer to what people are actually looking for when they return to books across different stages of life.